Hello everyone, and thanks for joining our panel session today. I'm Juliano Lissoni, I'm the Managing Director of MCI Group in Canada, and I'm speaking to you from this beautiful snowy day at High Park in Toronto. We're going to talk about data, and data is important in our business, and I'm very passionate about the use of data and everything we can do with the best use of the information we can get. But we're going to hear from a group of specialists, and they're going to talk to us about how can we use data to accelerate our recovery process? What data can teach us about customer experience? What we can do if we use information in the right way to get us better as soon as possible. So stay tuned because we're going to have great conversations today, and thanks again for joining us for our panel today for the Global Tourism Forum. And now it's my pleasure to bring here one of our guests of today is John Martinez, as the CEO and founder of Shocklogic. Hello, John.
Hi, Juliano. Good to see you.
Yeah, great to have you here in our panel. So, John, let's start talking about data. We've been seeing that this post-COVID, the post-pandemic recovery will be data-driven. And companies, organizations will be using analytics for driving decision making, and that we've been seeing in many sectors. Do you see that on tourism sector again as well? And how can tourism organizations benefit from aligning analytics with business priorities for this new post-COVID world that we're going to be seeing soon?
Yeah, I think that the situation that we find ourselves right now many of them are here to stay. Many of these questions and challenges are not going to go away anytime soon. They're gonna stay with us. They're going to be with us, and they're going to be with us for a while. Some of them, of course, will pass. I think that the tourism industry will adapt, or it has been adapted really well. And data is, of course, all important and all encompassing. I think that the fact that nowadays we can integrate so many things, so those of us that provide technology solutions are, APIs are association program interfaces, and big data and AI systems, etc. They're all data driven. AI is also data driven. It's always content, but content turned into data and managed as changing and mobile and adapting and dynamic information. So there's what's happening already is that in this process of adapting, we need to be able to analyze what's going on. And there's no better way, because so much is happening online. We now have this capacity to analyze more, and then to get more results. From those results, we can drive decisions, and from those decisions, then actions will come. And it's the only way that we can get any results, of course, is by following that chain that comes with the analysis, and of course the production, the collection, and then the analysis of that data.
And in your experience, John, is organizations are using the data the way they should right now? And maybe customers are using data better than organizations right now. So how do you see that balance? And how do you think this can be like a bigger improvement after this pandemic is over?
Yeah, I think that the current situation with COVID has brought a lot of what happens online, right? So more and more traditional travel agents, they're less and less, and more and more. People are working from home. I know some tourism organizations that are actually selling their offices, so people are going to be working from home, which means is that the digital aspect, not only data aspect, but digital in general, has achieved much more of a preponderance in everything that's going on. To the question if we're using data in the right way, I think that we are in diapers. I think that we are just at the beginning of this curve, and that we are going to find ourselves really, there's a lot that's going to change. And our capacities to do more and more with the data that is collected, not necessarily that we collect, but others collect on our behalf, is going to be absolutely vital to the whole equation. So customers are going to transact more and more online. We're going to find integrators, companies or bodies or organizations that are actually going to be between silos, communicating from one to the other. Now we know so clearly how the hotel industry has become so much more connected. Used to be, so separate, but for the last easy 10 years, this become ubiquitous. The capacity to connect one to the other. The disruptors in the industry are going to. I've talked to so much. I mean, I know they have angry, they have bothered a few of the larger players, but the Airbnbs and the Booking.coms of this world, et cetera, those kind of companies have come to create a ripple that actually is going to be, we feel it every day, and it's going to be felt more and more. And there are many of these unicorns, but maybe not to the level of some of those companies. But they actually are doing a lot with data. They're taking data from one side to the other. They're making the data available for us as those of us which are smaller organizations to be able to analyze the information and see what decision do we make and how do we want to behave. But I don't think that we're yet. There's a lot of learning. I mean, when we compare what smaller organizations do with data to what some of the large players do with data, it is like a world apart. Absolutely in a different league.
And you've been in this business of digital and data, of course, for such a long time, right?
Yeah.
And of course, this transformation is now speeding up dramatically, right? Sometimes I have a sense, John, that some people think they will be left behind. And I think this is a necessary call for action in terms of how organizations can help those, those talents to reskill, upskill themselves and embrace this. So what do you think organizations and people in general should do in that respect?
Yeah. I've been in the tourism industry for about 30-something years. In my previous life, I was a quantum physicist, so I'm a proper nerd and a technology person.
From MIT, right?
Yeah. I have a PhD. So I'm a proper nerd. So in a nerd-a-thon, I am your man. If you're gonna nerd it out, you can put your money on me. So I've been either creating, transacting, consulting, or helping customers and organizations to deal with our data for about 30 years. Yeah, I can understand there is a feeling, and that's what I was talking about, that gap, the massive gap between the larger organizations and then the rest of us, And yes, some organization might be feeling that they're being left behind, and I think it is a fantastic opportunity, and it's a fantastic the role of the Global Tourism Forum, which sort of bring together such a plethora of players and stakeholders is going to be absolutely vital for this. And this is what's going to allow smaller companies to be able to have access to data and information. Of course, they might not have the power to mine that data and to analyze and exploit the data to the level of some of the larger organizations, but at the same time, it's going to become more and more available and accessible. I don't know if there's a guy called he has one of the best BBC presentations ever, and he shows data in a way how data floats and moves around. He started a website called MindGap, if I'm not wrong, is the name of the website. And then you can actually take data elements and define a y and an x-axis, and then plot the data inside, and then move the indicators to see how it moves. So you can actually look for what would happen if, or what did happen in the past, and then you can project that forward. And these are actually available. I mean, they're becoming more and more of this are going to be more accessible. I think that what's happening is that not only the large organizations are being able to analyze more data, but more tools are becoming available online. I think that we're going to have a lot of access to that, and I see this happening in the next easy 9 months to a year, where many of these tools are going to become of easy access. There's so many things that, I don't think that we imagined that the way, this connection that we have right now, right? This conversation that we're having, and it's being viewed by people all over the world. It's being accessed by people all over the world. My company has been Zooming for 5 years, but our clients, for a lot of them, that's what new, right? So it's very similar to that. It is this is going to happen like in waves. But then there's something that in technology is called leapfrogging, which is that some of the organizations and some of the groups that stay behind actually jump to the first step. So the same way that Facebook and some of these platforms have become the standard. You can never offer anything less than that. You have to. That is the minimum they can offer. So that, I feel, is we're going to be experiencing, and what's going to be happening, and more and more of these online tools are going to become available to us to analyze, to mine, to make decisions, etc., etc. And the more organizations make their data available, the more that we understand that not only data is power, but it's also the democratization of that data. How do we allow, and what do we have to do as individuals and as smaller companies? Although MCI is massive in comparison to Shocklogic, if you compare MCI with BA, then you have a gap again. So so the democratization of that data, and how is going to be the access of the normal companies and smaller companies in order to be able to analyze the data, and then not have access to the data, be able to run analysis on that data, and then make decisions based on those analysis and those results.
So it's not a matter of data ownership or data sharing. It's more like you can go and access the data. You can use the data without owning the data, without making a bad use of the data, but you can analyze and you can come back with insights.
Exactly.
I think that's a very, very interesting approach. Yeah. So my next question, John, is I've been asking to all the presenters in our session, our panel, if you could go back in January 2020, what would be doing differently?
What would I do differently?
Yeah.
I would make some of the decisions that I made in February, March earlier, so I can be even more in front of the curve. What we did is we did a lot of shifting of our services and our solutions to cater for the virtual market, and we made sure that we created products and services that will serve the new normal. The new normal. That's something that is being repeated so much, but it's a reality. How much are we? So how we engage in travel wise? How do we find out what's going on? I mean, I just saw some flights from Singapore airline. It was like they were taking off, going around for about a number of hours, and then coming back and landing again in order to provide a service that it was unimaginable a few years ago. I am going to get on a flight in order to go around the sky for a while in order to come back and hey, I had the feeling of traveling. So,
which by the way, we're all missing.
Exactly. We're desperate for that.
Yeah. Okay, John. So it was a great pleasure having you here, having this conversation, and thank you so much for joining us for this panel for the Global Tourism Forum, and wishing you a great day.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. And now our next guest is a great pleasure, great honor to welcome in our session today, Dr. Baris Onay. Dr. Baris has a long track record on meetings in events industry and also digital. And now he's a consultant, and we're going to have a great conversation right now. Hello, Dr. Baris.
Hi, Juliano. The honor is all mine. Thank you for having me.
That's great. So let's start. You've been researching and investigating the relationship between human and technology, human behavior technology. Can you tell us a little bit about your findings in this, crazy world we're living right now, and how you see that face-to-face meetings and digital meetings will coexist after the pandemic?
Of course. The thing is, I've been part of the events industry for so many years as I can remember. And the thing is, there's always, in times of crisis, we always tell ourselves, we pat ourselves in the back saying, oh, people are social creatures, and you know what, everything will be fine. And I've been very guilty of that myself. And I've been saying that to my clients, I've been saying that to my colleagues, I've been saying it to everyone, but I knew that by whilst using that, of course, we are social creatures and we want to eat. I always wanted to put some science behind it. So lately I've jumped on my academic roots once again and did some good digging into the literature. And I did a review of human interaction. And I found some interesting findings about why face-to-face is still, of course, king of interaction between people, but other forms are actually catching up. The main, let's say, argument I've constructed for face-to-face is threefold. For other sorts of interaction, just like a video call like this one we're having right now, or an audio call, or an instant message, or an email, or anything else, there are differences between the quality level of the interaction you're having versus face-to-face. And the most important part is in face-to-face, the interaction, the attention is undivided. I am talking to you, I know you're talking to me. The first moment you check your watch or phone, I know that you're not talking to me. So the real in-person face-to-face has that undivided attention thing. And with the best video call, I might be watching Game of Thrones in the next tab right now. You'll never know. So there's this first attention deficits between the two. The other is, the first one is, of course, in person. And there's so much more to meeting someone than actually seeing someone on a video call. And there's a whole string of thoughts called the media richness theory. And there's a cognitive signal loss as we go down from a in-person meeting to a video call, to an audio call, and to other stuff. And as we go further down this line, we lose non-verbal clues. We lose what makes us human, actually, the touch, the feel for the person, the energy in the room, stuff like that. So that really inhibits one very important thing, which is trust building. If you're having a video call with someone that you know, you have trust you've built before, and you can use it in that call. But if you're actually meeting someone for the first time on a call without somebody who you could project trust from, like a common friend, it's very hard to get a judgment of character for the person you're talking to on video, let alone on audio, and the other ones. And one of the most important things is the third pillar of face-to-face interaction is confidentiality. When we are face-to-face, just one person, let's say Juliano, you and I, we sit in a room and we talk. What we talk is ours, unless we decide to share it outside. But when you're on a video call or an audio call or a conference call or any type of other email, you are actually not sure if that data is recorded, reshared, or tapped into, eavesdropped. You actually don't know. So that erodes trust into the interaction you're having. So these three things put together actually puts face-to-face to a whole other level. Now, all that being said, video calls are catching up. I mean, with COVID, what we found is actually this format of interaction is now socially acceptable. When we talk about the business endeavor, we talk about we're going to have a meeting. Let's organize a call. You're actually not referring to an audio call anymore. You're always referring to a video call. So this is the new normal. This is the new face-to-face now. People are really used to doing this. So I think my predicament, my projection for face-to-face meetings is that we have passed the peak of face-to-face interaction. And video and other forms are going to have a huge catch-up effect. This doesn't mean that face-to-face is not relevant anymore. It's more than ever, perhaps. But it's going to be reserved for a more premium reason. You will probably fly less and meet less people face-to-face or go to less events, most probably. But the ones you'll go to, you'll be more engaged. The ones you go to will be more high level. So there's a shift from quantity to quality in face-to-face interaction. That's what I'm seeing in my research.
Interesting. So in your research and now with the conclusions, obviously, you're saying that we're gonna have to necessarily adapt to this new way of doing, right?
Absolutely.
And do you think there's a space for a better use of all this data and all this information that we can like capture on the use of digital technologies?
Well, of course, and if you look at that world is also changing. We used to be very unconscious, or we didn't really care if Facebook used our data or Twitter or someone else, all these big tech companies. But now we do. There is a consciousness building up. I always make the analogy between tobacco industry. When do you remember people used to smoke in the airplanes? Yeah, that was okay. They used to smoke on TV. It's unthinkable right now. Yeah. So I think the same is going to happen to some of these big tech companies and the privacy of our data. When they got started, there wasn't any precedent to them. Companies like that on a massive scale being able to eavesdrop on everything you're doing on the internet. So we were cool for a very long time with their usage of our data because we thought it was giving us something in return. But now recently, after what happened with Cambridge Analytica, other things, and other cases around people growing very wary of their private information being utilized and resold to as an attention merchant would, to third parties. I think we've also passed the peak of data ungovernedness. It's going to be governed. Regulation is coming. So basically, that also has peaked. So we're entering a new phase of being more control of your data. So that's also something new for us.
Okay, and how organizations can move faster in embracing this complex and different scenario that is presenting in front of them. Like we've been going through the pandemic, we've been adapting as much as we can, but now we're seeing that many of those things will stay, right? So how can organizations, individuals, how can we adapt to that more quickly?
I think the answer is going to be a bit, my answer at least, is going to be a bit boring, sorry for that, but you need to set your business strategy first. What are you trying to do? Yeah. And then look at what your client is trying to do, find the common ground, and then look at the technology, yeah, of how to facilitate that. If you start with the technology, you're going to go somewhere most probably that nobody's wanting to go, including yourself. So the thing is, for a company, it's easy to get dizzy with the headlights. Oh, stuff going on. You know, there's video calls, there's video chats, this, that, chatbots, AI, everything. Fantastic. But do you actually need that? Is the first question. I don't know. For a company, it might be anything, yeah. But it might not be super relevant for every company. Of course, the new world commands much more quicker, let's say, response rates online and being able to have a customer journey that goes 90% of the way online before it actually realizes into your product. So you have to take care of that. So you have to think of the client on where the journey starts and until your product and after your product, after sales. But don't be fascinated by the technology. Just know where your product has the upper hand, what your customer wants to do, and deliver the common ground with the technology that's available to you right now. And don't start with the technology.
Yeah, that's interesting. And on that note, Dr. Baris, what do you say that organizations should stop doing to adapt more quickly?
Well, first, stop pretending you're a tech company, because you're not. Yeah, accept it. Move on. Yeah, don't go building your own technology and stuff, because that's not your core business. If it is, great, but most probably it's not. Yeah. The thing is, it is very easy to find flows in the available technology and say, if it was like this, it would be better, blah, 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 blah. So I'm going to build my own. Sounds good at the start, but it's a long uphill battle. So one thing you should stop is to really think about building your own bespoke technology. Look at finding a few technology bits out there and tying them together. I get that, of course. Do integrations, but don't do your own stuff from A to Z, because that's not the way the big tech boys do it either. Yeah, people buy modules and tie them to each other. So that's one. And second, don't go past your brand premise. Yeah, your brand permission. If you are someone who sells product A, just because you think product B is right next to yours, that doesn't give you permission to be a seller of product B, just because you can actually, through osmosis of technology, move towards some side products. Just don't do that, yeah? Because you're going to dilute your main mantra. You're going to step outside your comfort zone, and you might not be able to keep a lid on everything. It's hard.
That's very interesting. So now I have a question that I've been asking to all our guests today is, if you could come back in time to January 2020, what you have done differently?
I would have bought some Zoom stock, of course. But no, I mean, on the serious note, I'll give you a very funny story. The company I used to work for in January had an office in Wuhan. Yeah. So we heard first, I think, I'd like to say, I said, hey, they're closing down the office. Yeah, whatever, so a few people. It's all right, fine. So this is a multinational global company. Then they say, hey, the Chinese shows are probably not happening. Oh, really? Sales are down? What's going on? So the thing is, we took it so lightly for so long. But, I mean, that was the general consensus. Everybody's doing the same, yeah? And something's off in China. SARS happened before, don't worry about it, yeah? So that type of taking it lightly has costed people dearly. I would have found a way to really dig down into what's actually happening on the ground and take more precautions much earlier on.
Yeah, that's a kind of common feeling that we're all having right now.
Well, it's nobody's fault.
Yeah,
this is unprecedented.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody's clairvoyant enough to actually foresee stuff like this.
Yeah. Okay. Any other recommendation for companies in terms of what they should be thinking in when the pandemic is over and we're going to start like this new way of doing things? Any further recommendation for organizations about things they should consider?
Of course, the thing is, I talked about not building your own technology, but I don't want this to go to the wrong direction. The thing is, if there's a need, of course you should, but look at collaborating with people. Yeah, look at collaborating with the tech players. A few of those at the same time. If there is a solution, because we talked about having your strategy and what your client wants, the common ground. Yeah, if you cannot deliver it on your own, which we most probably can't, you can collaborate. Yeah, think about that. You can even collaborate in this world now with your competitors. Think about that as well. This is a new world we're talking about. Yeah, it's woven together, molded together by technology today. So don't build an island either. Don't be an island. Be on the mainland. Yeah, connect to people. Don't close the floodgates. Don't go sorting out all your problems on your own, because the problems that we're in are bigger than any company. So therefore, look at collaboration as a tool to get out of this.
Yeah, that's a great word, collaboration. And so, Dr. Baris, Onay, thank you very much for taking the time and joining us in this panel today. And we really appreciated this conversation. And again, thank you so much, and have a great day.
My pleasure, Juliano. Goodbye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So now it's my great pleasure to bring to this conversation Thomas Emanuel, director at STR and based in London. And it's one of the experts about the use of data in the process of the recovery from the pandemic. Thomas, thanks for joining us today. It's a great pleasure having you here.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
So my first question for you is, we've been reading and listening a lot about how executives in different sectors are considering the use of data to speed up, to accelerate the recovery from the pandemic. Do you see that happening in our industry as well? Do you see that our industry is becoming more like, consuming more data and using more data to drive analysis and decision making?
Absolutely. I think data has never been more important, and I don't think it's ever been more relevant than it is currently today. Obviously, at STR, we're at the center from the hotel perspective, looking at data, and we have been working with our partners across the industry since the start of this pandemic to make sure that they have the most up-to-date data available to make the decisions they need to in this incredibly challenging period, and a period of recovery that is going to follow as well. So yes, 100% data is pivotal, and within our industry, it's only going to get more important.
And when it comes to hotels and what is happening right now with in the hotel world, right? So how can you say, in terms of checking the data you have at STR, which segments are the key drivers of the demand right now for the hotel industry?
Well, it depends slightly across various geographies. Obviously, STR is a truly global business, so we are tracking hotel performance across the world. But if we look at it generally, the main segment that's driving any demand is leisure, and it's domestic leisure. Obviously, there are multiple challenges around travel internationally at this point, quarantines, restrictions, and so forth. So the demand is very much domestic driven, and because of as well around social distancing and meetings and things like that, corporate travel hasn't taken off at all really since the start of the pandemic, and nor has group either. So group conference, exhibition, incentive, and so forth. So really what we're seeing, it's domestic and it's leisure driven at this point of time, which is also usually the most busy, the most buzzy. They've suffered more than what we deem sort of coast and countryside as well, which is slightly more from this downturn as such.
And for some way, is that difference in different parts of the world? You have different geographies behaving differently?
We do. And if we look to China, where of course the pandemic began, actually hotels in China are back up and really only just below 2019 levels in terms of performance. And that's fantastic. The virus has largely been contained in China. So we've started to see corporate demand back. So China really led the way. There are other places where the virus has been contained, to New Zealand, Australia being where we've started to see some corporate demand return. So there's some parts of the US as well, but in markets, Europe in particular, which is in the midst of, as we know, second waves, additional national lockdowns. Also, Latin America and Africa have been challenged greatly by this pandemic as well. So those are markets additionally which are lagging behind those that are further along the recovery path as such. So certainly some differences when we look at different geographies around the world, yes.
And looking beyond now, what do you see as the first segments that will be able to keep up and recover fast?
So domestic leisure is there, and I think international leisure is short haul international level leisure, I should say, is another segment that we think will return in the not too distant future once we've got quarantines lifted, travel corridors reopened. People want to travel, they have leisure time, they want to go overseas and experience. So we think international short haul leisure will recover after that domestic piece. Then we'll start to see domestic corporate demand start to come back as well. We need to start see people returning to the office though, starting to live their work lives as they usually do. And then post that, once we've got vaccinations rolled out, we think we'll start to see international corporate and long haul international leisure recover. And then the last segment really, which we think will come back, will be group, conference, incentive, exhibition, of course, because there'll be mass gatherings of people. So we're really looking for a number of these segments is going to be post-mass vaccination, but hopefully we'll start to see pockets still recover before we've sort of seen that widely distributed. But that's generally the order we think things will come back in.
Okay. And in terms of lessons learned, what do you think that are the positives that the hotel industry can learn from this process of living through a pandemic?
I think innovation is a key one. The industry will have to innovate from a technology perspective, from a cleanliness perspective, and innovation can never be a bad thing. So I think that's going to be one of the key things that we see change in the industry as a result of the pandemic. And then secondly, for me, I think a big thing in many countries, I won't say this is across the board, but in many countries, the appreciation and the recognition that our industry so richly deserves, which isn't always forthcoming. So if we look at the forum such as today's, obviously there's a lot of government ministers present, which is fantastic. And I think that increased recognition of what hospitality, hotels, tourism brings to each country's balance sheet effectively, what a contributor we are to GDP and jobs. We are in that industry as a result of it. So a couple of things I think that hopefully will be forthcoming and will be a positive in the medium to long term for our sector.
That's great. And so this is a question that I ask all our panelists today. It's if you could travel back in time and go back to January 2020, what would you be doing differently?
What would I be doing differently? I think appreciation is probably the word. I think I was very blessed in my role. I was traveling, I was overseas, I was meeting people, I was networking and drumming up business for STR, and I took it for granted, and that I think I would appreciate it a little bit more rather than take it for granted to an extent. And then I think it's a similar thing. Friends, family, the ability to go and have a meal, go and have a drink, see people, value that. And I think, again, something that hopefully will appreciate a bit more and appreciate what was normal, and hopefully will return in the not too distant future. So for me, it's all about appreciation.
That's great. Thomas, any additional thought that you would like to share with our colleagues that are watching us today about how can we take this moment to use everything we learn and do better for the future?
I think just we have to learn from this. We have to make the most of it. We don't think by any stretch of the imagination that travel or tourism is irreparably damaged. People still will want to travel, will want to experience, will want to meet, will want to network. So for every demand driver, there is a positive there, and we will get back to where we were, and we will surpass where we were. But it will take time. So I would just everybody should bear that in mind and use the data. Use the data that's available. It will help you in understanding where you are, where you've been, and where you're going. And it's been a very, very challenging time for our wonderful industry.
That's great. Thomas, thank you so much for joining us for this panel today. This was Thomas Emanuel, director at STR, based in London. And thanks again, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.